In this video, I will be ranking the top 5 fights in Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Season 1 from worst to best, and also giving my reasons as to why I gave each fight their rank. But before we get into the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please remember that this is only my opinion. And with that being said, let's get into it. At number 5 is Ichigo versus Quilge. Quilge OP was the first Stern Ritter we were introduced to, and he was able to show off his strength against the Tres Bestia. But let's be honest here, those guys kind of suck, so it was light work for him. However, luckily for us, Ichigo would arrive and challenge him, and because they were in Hueco Mundo, they had enough space to go all out. Quilge showed us each and every one of the Quincy's abilities, including Bleach, a Quincy's ultimate defensive and offensive abilities, and most importantly, he also activated his Quincy Vor Stern Dig. Immediately after he activated it, he takes on a form of an angel. Ichigo and Quilge continue to battle it out, but Aion eventually joined in, and he put up quite a fight. He even managed to break Quilge's neck. However, he snaps it back in place, and after this, he completely absorbs Aion. Both of their bodies merge together, and Quilge transforms into a complete monster. But before he was able to do any damage, Ichigo attacks him head on, and surprisingly, he was beating the crap out of him. This fight was very one-sided. Quilge never stood a chance. Anyways, long story short, the fight had to come to an end because Ichigo was needed in the Soul Society. However, Quilge uses his ability, the jail, to trap him in the Garganta. The reason why this fight came at number 5 is because there was no winner. Quilge was defeated by Grimmjow. At number 4 is Byakuya versus As Nodt. I am pretty sure that this fight had everyone on the edge of their seats, and this is because Byakuya wasn't doing too well against As Nodt. He couldn't even penetrate his skin. His Senbon Sakura wasn't enough for him to win this battle, and due to this, he had to activate his Bankai. But unfortunately for him, this would turn out to be the worst decision of his life. As Nodt pulls out a medallion and literally steals Byakuya's Bankai. Now, as we all know, a Bankai is a Soul Reaper's ultimate ability, so without it, Byakuya was fucked. And on top of that, As Nodt uses his holy letter to instill fear into Byakuya. His limbs were frozen, and we get to see the effects of As Nodt's the fear ability. Byakuya falls into 2 illusions. In the first one, we see Rukia smiling, but in the next moment, her face melts off. And in the second illusion, countless of flies crawl around Byakuya's body, even to the point where they enter his mouth. As Nodt was psychologically abusing Byakuya to the point where he was literally losing his mind. And to put him out of his misery, As Nodt pulls out his medallion and uses Byakuya's own Bankai against him. This was very painful to watch. He showed him no mercy. He pinned him against a wall and launched a barrage of attacks on him. And the fight ends with Byakuya's Zanpakuto shattering, indicating that he is on the verge of death. And because of this, fans were convinced that he was dead. At number 3 is Ichigo versus Yhwach. I think that we can all agree that in the first invasion, the Quincy's completely dominated the Soul Reapers. Not only did Toshiro, Soifon, Komamura, and Byakuya lose their Bankai, but on top of that, the head captain had been killed. The Soul Reapers had lost all of their confidence, and it was up to Ichigo to save them. And because he was the only one whose Bankai couldn't be stolen, he was their only hope. And when Ichigo arrived in the Soul Society, he went straight to Byakuya. And after seeing his condition, Ichigo was enraged. Byakuya reveals that he doesn't have much time left, but before he dies, he has one final favor to ask of Ichigo. He begs him to save the Soul Society. Ichigo doesn't even reply to Byakuya. He leaves, and in the next scene, he confronts Yhwach. But I think we need to emphasize how cool Ichigo's entrance was. His Zanpakuto falls from the sky to the ground and blocks Yhwach's path. After this, Ichigo arrives in front of Yhwach with the coolest pose in anime history. Immediately after this, Ichigo's spiritual pressure spirals out of control. Yhwach draws out his sword and they begin to battle it out. This entire scene was phenomenal, and the best part about it was that it was anime exclusive content. In the original manga, this fight was literally just 2 chapters, but luckily for us, it was extended in the anime. Anyways, Yhwach manages to pin Ichigo to the ground and he stabs him in the neck. However, he reveals that it wasn't a fatal blow. In the next scene, Yhwach takes a closer look at Ichigo and he realizes that he had the same pattern as Bleach vein on his neck. And after this, Yhwach launches another attack at Ichigo. He literally tries to chop off his arm, but luckily for Ichigo, he was saved again by Bleach vein. And surprisingly, Ichigo didn't even realize what was going on. It is then revealed that because Ichigo came in contact with Quilge's jail, Ichigo's spiritual pressure mixed in with his, and Quilge's spiritual pressure seeped into Ichigo's soul, and in the process drew out memories within Ichigo's spiritual pressure. Yhwach also explains that Quilge's jail is only meant to restrain enemies. It is unable to contain Quincy's. And here's where the plot thickens. Yhwach further on reveals that Ichigo doesn't know anything about himself and his own mother. Anyways, this fight was cut short because of Aizen. And before the Quincy's retreat, not only did Yhwach destroy Ichigo's Zanpakuto, but on top of that, before Yhwach leaves, he gaslights Ichigo by calling him his son born in the dark. In this fight, Yhwach was able to hint towards the fact that Ichigo might be a Quincy, and it was also a really good build up for the reveal later on. At number 2 is Unohana versus Kenpachi. After Kenpachi suffers an embarrassing defeat against Yhwach, it was time for him to learn Zanjutsu, and who better than the original Kenpachi to teach him? I am sure that this was to everybody's surprise, but it was revealed that Unohana was actually the first ever Kenpachi. The 2 Kenpachis meet in Muken, and there we learn that this is a battle to the death. There could only be one survivor. The battle rages on, and Unohana manages to pin Zaraki against a wall, and surprisingly, she drives her Zanpakuto through his neck. And in the next scene, Kenpachi comes back to life. See, he was under the impression that he just blacked out. However, Unohana reveals that this is far from the truth. See, each time Kenpachi is on the verge of death, he grows stronger. We also learn that in the past, Unohana and Kenpachi clashed swords, and she reveals that because of their battle, Kenpachi would place shackles on himself. This is because Unohana was the only one who could rival his power. However, she was weaker than him, and because she was the first person in his life who could satisfy his thirst for battle, he believed that if he won this fight, then he would never experience the joy of battle again, and because of this, he would go on to suppress his power. We cut back to the present, and Kenpachi finally manages to cut Unohana. He explains that before he could only react, but now he can also counter her attacks. In addition, he also reveals that each time he blacks out, he wakes up feeling reborn, and this was an indication that Unohana's theory was right. In the next moment, Unohana kills Kenpachi over and over again, and each time he died, she healed him. She goes on to explain that this is the only way he can return back to what he used to be. And if he can successfully do this, he will be able to surpass Unohana and also become even stronger. Next, Kenpachi manages to land a fatal wound on Unohana, and immediately after this, Unohana starts to heal herself with a healing ability called Kaido. And right after this, she unleashes her Bankai, Minazuki. Anyways, to cut a long story short, Kenpachi finally releases his true power. And in the next scene, Kenpachi thanks Unohana for teaching him what battle is. After this, Kenpachi drives his Zanpakuto through Unohana's chest. This fight came at number 2 because of several reasons. Not only was it revealed that Unohana was the first Kenpachi, but we also saw her Bankai, and finally after Kenpachi wins the battle, his Zanpakuto awakens. Now, without further ado, at number 1 is Yamamoto versus Yhwach. At the very beginning of this fight, we got anime exclusive content, and this was phenomenal. Studio Period gave it their A game. The choreography was out of this world. However, the real battle commences when Yhwach draws his sword, and immediately after this, all of Yamamoto's flames disappear. In addition, all of the water in the Soul Society evaporates, and after this, it is revealed that Yamamoto had activated his Bankai, Zanka no Tachi. Now, in my opinion, this is the best Bankai in Bleach. Nothing comes close to it. It literally has 4 forms. In the first form, Zanka no Tachi East, all of Yamamoto's flames are focused into the tip of his Zanpakuto. Everything it touches is blown away without leaving a trace. In the west of Zanka no Tachi, Yamamoto literally turns into the Human Torch. His entire body is engulfed by flames. In this state, the temperature of his body was at 15 million degrees. Yamamoto explains that when he uses the west of his Bankai, his entire body and blade are basically being engulfed by the sun. He was literally untouchable. Now, the south of his Bankai is definitely my favorite. It is called Kakajuma no Kushida Sojin. Yamamoto resurrects the corpses of those who he has killed. They become his limbs, and he can control them to do his bidding until they turn to dust. And if you think that's bad, wait till you hear this next bit. The skeletons were actually the dead comrades of Yhwach from 1,000 years ago. If Yhwach wanted to kill Yamamoto, he first had to defeat all of his subordinates with his own hands. It was literally disgusting and immoral. To end Yhwach's misery, Yamamoto releases the north of Zanka no Tachi. Yamamoto creates an explosive slash that literally obliterates everything within the range of his attack. And after this, a chunk of Yhwach's body was missing. He drops to the ground and rain starts to pour. And yeah, we all know how this went. It was revealed that this wasn't actually Yhwach, but rather Stern Ritter Y, there yourself. And after this, the real Yhwach appears and steals Yamamoto's Bankai. And shortly after this, he kills him. I know that some people aren't really huge fans of this plot twist, but I think it's pretty good. Yamamoto gave it his all, and in the end, everything he did ended in vain because the real Yhwach came into the mix and completely embarrassed him. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please remember that this list was based on my own opinion. Thank you for watching, and let me know down in the comment section how you guys rank the fights of Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Season 1. And also, please don't forget to like and subscribe.